The Marine Corporal is third in the stack when the man ahead of him takes fire from the stairwell below. Fallujah, November 2004. The automatic rifleman behind him swings his M249 into position, squeezes the trigger, and gets 9 rounds before the weapon stops. Not a misfire, a belt jam. He drops, strips the feed tray, and clears it in under 10 seconds. 10 seconds in which the 2 Marines ahead of him are working through the landing with rifles. They get through. The room is cleared. But those 10 seconds were not an anomaly. That pattern, the belt jam, the cleared room, the fire team working short of its automatic weapon, repeated in the Jolan district that November with enough regularity that the men who went through it remembered it the same way. Marines came back from Fallujah with a consistent read. The weapon that was supposed to anchor the fire team's automatic capability was failing it in exactly the place it most needed to hold. The dark reason the Marine Corps eventually removed this weapon from its infantry rifle squads does not start with a design flaw. It starts with the fact that the weapon was brilliant for a war that never happened. Ernest Verviers designed the FN Minimi in the early 1970s at Fabrique Nationale in Belgium, and what he produced solved a problem that had haunted squad-level infantry doctrine since Korea. Fire teams needed dedicated automatic fire capability, not a heavy machine gun requiring crew and fixed positioning, but a weapon light enough to move with 4 men and capable of the sustained fire that pins an enemy long enough for other elements to maneuver. The Minimi fed from belts, 200 rounds available without reloading. It also accepted standard magazines as backup. Cyclic rate sat between 700 and 1,000 rounds per minute. Unloaded, about 17 pounds. Loaded with a 200-round drum, 22. The U.S. Army adopted it as the M249 Squad Automatic Weapon in 1984, and every NATO ally followed. The adoption was not bureaucratic inertia. It was sound military thinking rooted in a specific strategic scenario. NATO had spent 4 decades preparing for a Soviet armored thrust through the Fulda Gap in West Germany. In that scenario, infantry squads needed to slow massed mechanized formations across open ground, channel them into kill zones, impose casualties at range while heavier systems responded. Volume of sustained fire at range was the decisive capability. The M249 delivered it. 1 SAW per fire team, positioned on terrain, covering approaches across open distance. It was the right answer to the right question. The Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. The Fulda Gap remained an open field, and the M249 went to Fallujah. The geometry of building clearance is nothing like the geometry of open ground suppression. The M249 was designed for the second problem. In the Jolan district, combat distances that measured in hundreds of meters in European planning collapsed to the width of a doorway, the depth of a stairwell, the angle of cover behind a wall 3 feet away. The M249's 41-inch length became a liability in a 30-inch doorway. Its 22-pound loaded weight made the automatic rifleman the heaviest and slowest man in the stack. And its sound signature, the mechanical rattle of belt-fed fire, distinct from any rifle, made him identifiable to anyone in that district who had studied how American fire teams operated. That identifiability pointed to a structural problem the Fulda Gap scenario had never revealed. The M249 concentrated all of a fire team's automatic fire capability in 1 man with 1 weapon. In Europe, that man was at range, supported and protected by the team's positioning. In Fallujah, he was 6 feet behind the point man and already drawing fire. If he went down, or if his weapon stopped, and the Fallujah reports documented that it stopped with enough regularity in heat and rubble and fine dust, through belt jams and feed tray failures and a magazine adapter that had never fed reliably under stress, the fire team lost its automatic capability in a single stroke. 3 rifles where 4 men had entered, working without the weapon the Doctrine said they depended on. The Marine Corps listened to the after-action reports the way it listens to things that matter, systematically and without excuses. A competition had been building for years, driven by the evidence accumulating from Iraq and Afghanistan. The requirement was precise: a weapon lighter than the M249, more reliable in desert conditions, accurate enough for deliberate aimed fire at individual targets. capable of automatic fire, and one more requirement, the one that defined everything else. The new weapon would not create a dedicated automatic rifleman role. It would eliminate the role entirely and distribute the capability across every man in the team. In 2009, the competition produced an answer: Heckler & Koch's Infantry Automatic Rifle, designated by the Marine Corps as the M27. It runs on the HK-416 action, gas piston operated, which made it dramatically more reliable in the conditions that had exposed the M249's weaknesses. It fires 5.56 NATO from standard 30-round magazines, no belt feed, no magazine adapter, no separate system to jam under heat and debris. Unloaded, it weighs 7 9/10 pounds. That is not merely lighter than the M249. That is less than half the weight of the M249 loaded. The weight change matters. So does the reliability. But neither is the change that mattered most. What matters is the philosophy behind the shift. At first, the M27 replaced the M249 in a single slot, the Automatic Rifleman. One per fire team, just as the M249 had been. The weapon changed, the role appeared not to. But the logic kept moving. By 2018, the Marine Corps had followed it to its conclusion. Every Marine in the Infantry Rifle Squad would carry an M27. Not just the gunner, every Marine. There was no longer a designated automatic rifleman because every rifleman was now the automatic rifleman. There was no single position to find, fix, and suppress. There was a squad where every man could go automatic independently, and taking any one of them down changed the team's strength, not its character. There is another difference that the specifications don't capture. The M249 fires from an open bolt, mechanically necessary for a sustained fire weapon, because the open bolt allows air to cool the chamber between shots. But an open bolt degrades accuracy. The bolt slams forward when the trigger is pulled, and that movement arrives at exactly the wrong moment. The M249 was built for area fire, not precision. The M27 fires from a closed bolt, the same as a standard service rifle. At the distances that building clearance demands, across a hallway, through a doorway, it puts a round exactly where it needs to go. In a fight where the enemy is behind a specific piece of cover, rather than exposed across open ground, that distinction is the difference between suppression and elimination. The Marines needed a weapon that could do both, reliably, in the same confined space. The M27 was built to that standard. That is not a product upgrade. That is a reversal of 40 years of squad automatic weapons thinking. The fighting in Fallujah in November 2004 was the most intense urban combat American forces had conducted in a generation. Marine and Army battalions moved through a city that had been prepared for them. Rigged, barricaded, reinforced by fighters who had spent months studying how American infantry entered and cleared structures. The defenders in the Jolan district had identified the patterns of American fire teams and designed their tactics around those patterns. The pattern they centered on was the M249. In any American fire team, the automatic rifleman's position in the stack, the distinctive sound of his weapon, and the team's tactical dependence on his fire made him the highest value individual target in any engagement. Suppressing or eliminating him did not just remove a man, it removed the team's sustained automatic capability and forced 3 riflemen to work through a problem the Doctrine had assigned to 4. The defenders in Fallujah understood this. Their engagement patterns reflected it. What the after-action reports documented was not simply equipment failure. It was a doctrine tested in the specific environment it was least equipped for, producing results that followed logically from the mismatch. The M249 stoppages, belt feeds skipping in the heat and debris of building interiors, magazine adapters feeding inconsistently under the stress of room-to-room clearance, barrels overheating in the sustained close-range fire that urban combat demanded, were not maintenance failures or user errors. They were what happened when a weapon optimized for sustained fire at range was pressed into a role that required precision, compactness, and durability at close quarters through hours of intermittent engagement. The weapon performed as designed. It was designed for something else. The Marine units that came back from Phantom Fury were not broken. They were specific. Their reports did not request a better M249. They identified a fundamental mismatch between the weapon and the environment, and documented what that gap cost at the moments it mattered. Battalion commanders reading those reports saw the same pattern across multiple units. A fire team with its automatic weapon down was not 4 men operating at reduced capacity. It was 4 men under a different doctrine than the one they had trained under, improvising in a gap the weapon's design had created. The language in those reports has a quality that bureaucratic documents rarely have: specificity about what it actually cost. Marines documenting equipment failure under combat stress do not obscure consequences. The M249 reports from Phantom Fury describe a weapon that was the fire team's primary automatic asset, contributing, across multiple engagements in different units, to situations where the team conducted close contact clearance with degraded capability at the most dangerous moments. Translated out of the report language and back into the rooms where it was written, that documentation means one thing. American Marines, in one of the hardest fights of the Iraq War, were carrying a weapon their doctrine depended on that was not performing as their doctrine required. That gap between doctrine and reality is where people die. The Marine Corps had the records. The question was whether it had the institutional will to act on them. The conclusion was reached in the rooms of Fallujah. Formalizing it took 3 more years. Fielding an answer took 5. Completing the transition took 7 more. By 2018, the Marine Corps had made it official. Every Marine in the Infantry Rifle Squad would carry the M27. Not just the Automatic Rifleman, every position. The M249's role as the squad's primary automatic weapon, the role it had held since 1984, was done. The timeline was institutional. The decision was not. It was made by the men who went through those engagements and by the commanders honest enough to read what the pattern meant. The Army did not make the same decision. Neither did any other NATO ally. They read the same operational data from Iraq and Afghanistan and reached different conclusions. Conclusions shaped by different doctrinal priorities and different assessments of future threat environments. For forces that weighted large-scale conventional conflict more heavily in their planning, the M249's sustained, belt-fed fire at squad level remained a decisive capability the M27 could not replicate. Those conclusions were not wrong. The logic behind the M249 is not broken. It remains the right answer to a legitimate tactical problem. The problem it was designed for. The Marines understood exactly what they were trading away. Sustained automatic fire at volume. The suppression a 200-round drum delivers in 60 seconds. The tactical options that capability creates against a massed enemy in open terrain. They made that trade because the war the Marine Corps fights, amphibious assault, expeditionary operations, complex close terrain, urban combat, is not the war the M249 was built to dominate. They chose the weapon that fit the war they were actually fighting over the weapon that fit the war the procurement documents described. What this meant for enemy forces engaging M27-equipped Marine fire teams after 2012 was a tactical problem with no clean solution. The engagement model that had worked against M249 teams, identifying the automatic rifleman by position and sound signature, directing initial fire at that position to suppress the weapon or eliminate the gunner, using the resulting degradation to break contact or maneuver, did not translate to a team where every man carried the same capability independently. There was no single automatic position to find and fix. Every man in a Marine M27 squad carried the same weapon, each position capable of automatic fire on its own. Suppressing one did not create the window, it barely changed the math. And in the lanes and compounds of Helmand Province, that margin was not available. This is a claim about geometry, not invincibility. Enemy tactics depend on a pattern of American fire. The M249 created a pattern, concentrated, identifiable, eliminable. The M27 created a different pattern. Adapting to a new pattern requires time. At close range, time is the commodity neither side has. The Marine Corps' decision to pull the M249 out of its rifle squads was an act of institutional honesty that military organizations rarely produce. It required trusting the sergeants who had been in those buildings over the procurement logic that had validated the M249 for 2 decades. It required admitting that a weapon every NATO ally trusted was wrong for what the Marine Corps actually does. And it required the willingness to give up one kind of capability in exchange for a different kind. Not because the original was defective, but because the fit was wrong. And the wrong fit has a price. And that price gets paid by the men in the rooms. The worst failure in military history is rarely technological. It is doctrinal. It is building a solution for the war you expect and discovering in combat that you got a different one. The Marine Corps saw that mismatch coming in the after-action reports from Phantom Fury and made the call before the cost became irreversible. That capacity to refuse a comfortable answer when the evidence demands something harder is what the rejection of the M249 ultimately was. Not a product cancellation, a refusal to let yesterday's answer determine tomorrow's price. That capacity is what this channel exists to document. If that's why you're here, subscribe. There's more of it.